left my global job after working for 17 years in multinational like Castrol, and when I was 45, young age of 45. And then, when I left that, one of my colleagues said that, are you mad? Are you going crazy? Because obviously, I was doing very well in my global job, globe-trotting by business class, drawing 8-figure salary, and it sounded crazy that time. But one thing I can tell you is that I never felt like that. I knew that I had worked on certain formula, 4-step formula, which would make me successful entrepreneur, and obviously they didn't know that. And before I just share with you the proven formula with you, I just want to know that some of you who could be in job, and not necessarily that you are in your job today, you are studying, but you are aspiring to become entrepreneur. Can you just raise your hands that who want to really get into your own venture? Wow, that's quite a good number. So this talk is definitely for you. So let me start with step number 1, is the self-assessment and idea generation. I think it's very important for you to do your SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. It is very much required. While you understand your own strengths, I think it's very important for you to understand and recognize your weaknesses. The world is full of problems, right? And there are a lot of problem statements. And then you think that your ideas are great, you have definitely got great potential and opportunities, and you are working on the opportunities. But be mindful that you also need to ensure that you need to recognize the risks and threats associated with that. Because unless you understand the threats, it's not going to really help you and your idea becoming successful. My also advice to you, because I have gone through this and that's why I'm sharing with a lot of confidence, is that you come out with 3 or 4 ideas and then work on it, and after that you shortlist one idea which you think that it's going to change the world, you are going to make impact on the world. But before even venturing into next step, I think you should share your idea with some of your friends. And don't worry, if you are thinking that, oh, why should I share my idea on which I have worked, because there could be chance of that idea getting leaked out. But, believe me that you have your own strength, and somebody who is trying to copy your idea may not have those strengths. So just imagine that you have seen successful ventures and you are just going to copy them. Are you going to copy? Because you know that you have different skill set. So don't worry about that. But once you understand and arrive to certain idea after checking with your friends, it's not still over. You can't simply get into your own. You have to see that what is the financial viability of that idea. And that's where I'm coming to my second step, which is financial planning. And there, I think it's very important. When I decided to leave my cozy global job, I obviously had shared with my family, and my family was extremely supportive, particularly my wife and 17 years old son. Unless you have got the support from your family, it's going to be very, very difficult for you, because once you get support, half battle is won, believe me. So after that, I think you have to really decide that when you are talking about ideas, you need to understand one thing, is that the various startups, fail, and they don't fail because ideas are bad, but they fail because the entrepreneurs or the founders have not really thought of the financial viability of that, or how long I can sustain without earning the revenue. And it's very important to make that planning. And if you make that planning, then world is yours again, because you need to acquire your customers, you need to build your brand, you need cash, and you have to burn cash, but ensure that you burn cash within the budget which you have worked on. Otherwise, you will get into financial mess. But then it is also important that particularly if you are in 30s or 40s, you have certain liability, you have certain fixed incomes. If you are in 20s and hopefully not yet married, still you need to think about the expenses going to be for next 5 years, 7 years, and you have to be ready with that. But is that good enough? I don't think so. If you have some, deep pockets, you can, and if you can bootstrap yourself, then you can still, go with some grand plans. But assuming that you have to survive in this business in spite of challenges, I think my advice to you is that approach various organizations who conduct events, networking events. You try to make sales pitch to them, talk about your idea, and then see if you can get some financial support. I was very fortunate when I started Rosefield Energy Tech. I always thought that I have a great idea, but whether it will work, whether I can get any support. I was very fortunate to get support from HPCL, who really stood behind me, and they backed up my venture. So now that takes me to step number 3, is it is important now that you are leaving the job. You have worked on your SWOT, you have worked on your idea, you have actually planned your financials well, but you are still in the job. Now what you will do? Just don't simply leave your job like that. You have to ensure that you still maintain a cordial relationship with your employer. It is very important. And don't burn the bridges, very important. In my case, I'm still doing certain business with my employer Castrol, and I'm really thankful for that. So it's very important. Also, it is important for you to give sufficient notice to your employer. If you give more, then there is a lot of comfort coming from your employer. I gave 6 months notice to my employer, and that really helped them because they could get my replacement within those 6 months. There was one more benefit which I accrued, which was obviously not planned. I actually was fortunate to get 4 farewells, one in Singapore, one in London, one in Dubai, and one in Mumbai. So you can see that, that was actually the bonus for me. But the point which I am trying to make to you is that ensure your graceful exit. Then, obviously, you are not burning the bridges, as I said. Now I am coming to step number 4. So you have done your SWOT, you have worked on the idea, you have done financial planning, you have left the job. Now you are on your own, in your own venture. And suddenly you realize that, oh, when I was in the job, I need not be knowing certain things. There were other functions who were taking care of that. But suddenly you realize that you are on your own, you are doing business development, but you need to understand financials, you need to understand supply chain, you need to deal with people. So you have to enhance your knowledge and skills. Also, you have to keep in mind that there could be sudden surprises or uncertainties. Like when I started my Rosefield Energy Tech, I launched in Feb 2020, just a month before COVID. And obviously, COVID was not planned in my financial planning. But I could survive because that gave me time to look at things slightly differently. And let me just give you my example. I was always an oil person, and I used to look from the supply side or sales sides of fresh oil, going into your 2-wheelers, 4-wheelers, trucks, tractors. But what happened is that the kind of knowledge which I was trying to acquire helped me to see the other side of the oil, which was the drained oil. When we give our vehicles for workshops, they drain, and we really don't care where exactly that oil is going. But that became my interest, because I was aware through my study and when I was trying to enhance my knowledge that this black oil can be hazardous to the environment. I will just give you one statistics. 1 liter of used lubricating oil can contaminate 1 million liters of fresh water. That, I think, tells you a lot. But there is a positive side to it, is that this used lubricating oil can be recycled into re-refined base oil, which can go as an input into the fresh lubricant. So it's a classic case of circular economy, and then you know that you can actually help your country not only from environmental point of view, but also saving some precious foreign exchange, because if you can recycle that much oil, you are importing less crude oil or less base oil. And then, another part is, which is again little scary, is that today in India, and through our study we have seen, is that only 15% of the used oil is going for recycling, which means that for most of the used oil is going as a burning fuel, as a replacement to furnace oil. And that means that it emits metal compounds into the air, which is obviously not doing well for the environment. So recognizing that and the need for us and our country to really drive the circular economy, one day I received a call from Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog, which is a think tank policy maker of this country. And last 18 months, I am very fortunate to work with Niti Aayog on this circular economy. I'm working also with some of the best global companies now on circular economy. And somewhere it gives me a great feel that I'm doing something for the environment. I'm able to give back to society, to the industry, and that's a great feeling. And somewhere I wanted to share my story about this, is because when you are talking about the 4 steps, the impact which your startup can make on the society or on the environment or on the planet, it will give you amazing satisfaction, isn't it? So that's where you have to keep in mind that if you follow these 4 steps, you are definitely going to make your venture successful. So finding a purpose of why you are doing this, why you have started up the venture, is going to be extremely important. And I'm sure that everybody has different skills, and if you really work on your strengths and weaknesses and follow these 4 steps, world is going to be yours. So please go ahead, and if you are in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, doesn't matter, age is just a number. Thanks a lot.